My name is
Jenny.
David.
Lila.
Laurel.
Jen.
Lisa.
Dino. Hari.
Kyle.
I was a
Jehovah's Witness.
Jehovah's Witness.
FLDS.
In the Amish church.
The chosen people.
I was a Scientologist.
I grew up a Mooney, a member of the Unification Church.
2x2.
And I am
Shunned.
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 Hi, my name is Alex. I'm 34 years old. I was one of Jehovah's Witnesses, and I am shunned.
All right, Alex. So how'd you come to be one of Jehovah's Witnesses in the first place?
I was born into it, raised since birth. My mom and dad are both Jehovah's Witnesses still, and they raised my sister and I that way.
Do you know, does it go back farther than your parents in the family?
Yes, it does. So on my mom's side, I'm not sure how many generations it goes back, but definitely my grandparents. And they raised my mom from birth as a Jehovah's Witness as well. She kind of faded out in her teenage years, and she met my dad, who was worldly. He was actually, I think he was her manager, or they met at work somehow. And they moved in together out of wedlock, and my grandma found out, and she called the elders, and they came knocking and converted my dad as well.
Oh, okay. I thought they were going to come knocking to talk to your mom. So they came
probably
to
did too, I
convert
guess.
him.
Yeah, I think they came more for him. Yeah. My dad always said he had the intention of proving them wrong when he met them, and said he wasn't able to, so he decided to convert, and him and my mom eloped and had my sister and I within a couple of months.
Wow. Do you know how long it was from the time the elders came knocking to your dad, I guess, joining in, to them eloping, all of that? Was like this a quick process of change, or?
I think it was pretty quick, because I know my mom and dad met when I think she would have been 18, and she had my sister at 19. So in there somewhere. So I think it was pretty quick. Yeah.
Was your dad much older than your mom?
6 years older.
Oh, okay. So he had kind of been out and lived a little bit of life on his own and such.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, it sounds like he took to this really quickly. Do you know anything about where your dad was at the time? Do you think that he, Jehovah's Witnesses often find people who are vulnerable in some way. They've grown up as a byproduct of an abusive home, or they've lost someone in death, or there was a war, or someone is sick, or they had a new kid, or whatever. Was there anything there that you know of for your dad, or do you think that it was just the relationship, maybe, as kind of a driving force?
It'd be quite hard to pin down exactly what. There were a couple things going on that I know of. He had recently been broken up with by his fiance before he met my mom. And then he met my mom, and to be honest, I'm really not sure what was going on, but he
That's
is
fair.
the type of person who I think he likes to feel powerful and kind of in control. So he kind of took to it pretty well, I think. It kind of came out of left field for his side of the family. He's a very intelligent man. He was in university when he was in his I think he was 16 or 17. He graduated from high school early, went to university. He was a hockey player, football player. He was search and rescue. He was very adventurous, very talented, smart man. So if I'm being honest, I kind of think my mom got pregnant before they got married. So it was more out of respect for my mom when I look at the timing, but that's pure speculation. I just maybe he just really loved her and would do anything for my mom. I don't know.
Okay.
Yeah.
It is always interesting to look back at the origin story
Mhm.
of of how this came to be in a family.
Yeah,
We don't always know what it was that drove it. Sometimes it's so many generations back. There are no
exactly.
stories. It's really hard to know sometimes, but sounds like you have some idea at least of what was kind of going on in their lives around that time to some degree.
Yeah.
And if you like to feel powerful or in control, certainly Jehovah's Witnesses will provide you that opportunity.
Mhm.
They attract a lot of folks who like that, and I mean, to feel like you have the one and only truth of the universe and you know everything, that's pretty powerful, really. You know, it's a
Yeah,
powerful message that they have to the right people.
100%. Absolutely. And I don't know what I know they were my dad's side of the family is Christian. I don't know what denomination, but when he decided to be baptized as a Jehovah Witness, that side of the family actually shunned him for I think a year, maybe a year and a half. Um, so I think it was a pretty big deal him switching religions the way he did. But whatever passion he found in it, he liked it, and I tell you, that guy's stuck with it ever since.
Understood.
Yeah.
Oh, sounds like he gave up perhaps a lot to join it as well.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
I'd say so.
okay.
Yeah,
Well, there's some sunk costs there sometimes
for
for
sure.
people. So we'll get more into different aspects of it, but I have to ask, so your dad was this adventurous guy, it sounds like in a lot of ways.
Hmm.
Uh After becoming one of Jehovah's Witnesses, did he I mean, because you're talking about playing hockey and football, search and rescue, and all of these things. Did he continue anything like that, or did that go away?
Played like congregation teams,
Right.
like that type of stuff. But no, he left it all. Left it all. Changed careers completely. Um, and just decided to make this his. It became his passion for sure.
Uh, what did he change careers? Was he involved in some sort of career that maybe as witnesses you're not supposed to be involved in, or was it
Not necessarily. I think it was more the education and stuff. So I believe that he was taking like architecture or something like that, or engineering, something of the sort. And he was working as a restaurant manager, and that's where he met my mom, like during that time. And then he I've known him as a mailman my whole life. So somewhere in there, he started working for Canada Post, and he's delivered mail till he retired.
it's just interesting how joining or getting around Jehovah's Witnesses, and no shade thrown at male men and women either. I mean, mail carriers do an important job. It's a very tough job in a lot of ways, and uh, very respected job in many ways. But it sounds like he had a level of ambition towards certain things educationally, or
Mhm.
whether it was, some of the physical things he was doing, and that all kind of uh, it's just amazing how becoming one of Jehovah's Witnesses can just take everything from you and it
Yeah,
becomes your only thing.
yeah, exactly. And he's a great example of that. And I I was always in awe as a kid hearing the stories he'd tell me about his hockey or his football or search and rescue or this or that. And I'd be in awe of him, and then I'd almost have this confusion, like, "Why aren't you doing that anymore, Dad? That's so cool." And no, and it would always be, it's I've got to focus on the truth. I've got to, those types of cliche sayings they have, and um, that was it. So,
Well, let's get into your story a bit, and I think that shines. I'm sure will shine some light on your mom in the story as well, but shines a little light on where your dad might have been just as a person. You're growing up with, who seems to have given up a lot for this, probably very dedicated to it, and you're growing up in that environment. So, as a kid, what was the worldview that growing up as a witness, in your particular family, what was kind of the worldview that you were given, or how'd you see the people outside of Jehovah's Witnesses?
um, I guess the view was that if they weren't in the congregation, or they weren't a Jehovah Witness, bad association, and just not talk don't talk to them unless your intention is to preach God's word to them. So, um, we were in, my sis we, being my sister and I, we were in elementary school, probably grade 1, 2, and my parents pulled us out, and homeschooled us to keep us, away from the bad association. It kind of stemmed after I've always been a little tad bit rebellious, and even in grade 1, I really really wanted to join the Glee club, and I was told I wasn't allowed to, but I did it anyway. I joined the Glee club anyway, and my first concert, I did um, tell my parents about it, and they said, "Okay, well, we'll give you one try. You can, like, try and impress us with this singing club if you really want to, and if we approve, then we'll let you do it." So they show up to the school, front row, and we sing "A Whole New World" from Aladdin, and um, probably not a good song for them, but I didn't even see the problem in it, but because it was about magic, um, and within 2 weeks I was homeschooling.
Wow. So that
So,
quickly, you were
yeah,
forced to give up the thing that you liked.
yeah, mid-year of school. So it was always, we're we're good, they're bad. We're angels, they're the devil. There was a complete black and white separation. So I always had this um, view that the world was going to hurt me and that the world was out to get you. And we've all heard it. It's blinded. Everybody around us is blinded by Satan. And I literally took that literally as a kid, that people were just like we were God's children, that everyone outside of it was Satan's children, was kind of how I looked at it through what I was told.
So then were you happy when you were pulled out of school and being around the devil's children, basically? Were you happy to be homeschooled?
No,
Okay.
no, I wasn't. Um, I think as much as I was always like told these things, and I had this fear of these people, I always had this attraction to it as well. And this, um, like, I guess I can remember one time I asked my mom and dad, because I had this one friend like in kindergarten. I really just enjoyed her friendship. And the only reason I was allowed to hang out with her is because I brought in my book of Bible stories to school, and we would read the Bible story book on the playground. And it was my excuse to be able to hang out with this girl. And I remember asking my parents one day, like, why did he create us different if he's going to hate everybody? Like, I don't understand. Like, why do we have these different minds to think different things? God created it, but he's going to hate us. It just didn't make sense. And so I was always kind of questioning it. But and when you're a kid, you listen to what your parents say. And even if I'm thinking it and it doesn't make sense, dad and mom know best, because that's how it is. So even though I was sad to, I mean, I, I think that there was like, there was a sadness when I started homeschooling, because I just didn't know. But it was also the way they explained it to me. It just meant I was being a better Jehovah Witness girl. So it was what I had to do.
Sure. Well, I mean, we all growing up, it's just part of the developmental stage of life as kids. We all need to believe that our parents know what they're doing, and they're our safety, our security. They know things. They're our teachers. We think they can hang the moon when we're little kids, and we're looking to them for what is right and what is true. And even though you're a kid and you have natural, normal curiosity, or just want to be friends with people who treat you nice, or you have a hard time understanding how a loving father would create all of these people that he then hates. Um, it's, I mean, you're seeing those things, but the doctrine of Jehovah's Witnesses is very strong, and
Mhm.
uh, adults, grown adults, believe it, and then teach their kids that, and they think they're doing what's right. They have good intentions, and it's still it's still very harmful though. And so here you are being taken away and isolated from all these kids. I mean, it's confusing, isn't it? Right? You're on one hand, you're told that these are like the devil's children, so to speak, but on the other hand, well, Melissa in kindergarten's really nice to me, and I want to be friends with her, right? It's very
Exactly.
confusing.
Exactly, it is. And I think at one point I said to them, if God hates them so much and they're so evil, why does he want us to preach to them? And they're like, just ask them these questions, and they say and they have these typical answers, but an inquisitive young mind is like, well, your answer still doesn't make sense, but okay.
Because it doesn't make sense. It
No,
really doesn't.
no.
The whole out of the mouth of babes thing, right? I mean,
Yeah,
it's
exactly.
kids haven't been indoctrinated yet. They don't
Yeah,
have all of these workarounds and all of this mental conditioning yet,
yeah,
to move past their natural emotions and intellect. They haven't learned how to stop their own thoughts yet, how to
exactly.
stop their own feelings. They don't have fear
Yeah,
yet. Yeah, that's where kids can see through things. It's very interesting.
it is interesting. I agree. Yeah.
Um, so okay, so the outside world obviously was this, Satan-led place, because I mean that's what we were all taught. Did you feel special being one of Jehovah's children in Satan's world, so to speak? Did that make you feel special in some way? Or like, different, but in a good way? or um, did you ever worry about the people on the outside who were going to be killed at Armageddon and things like that?
I think it was more the last one there that I didn't. It was more of a why am I so special?
Mm,
And I don't obviously know the date of it, but there was an Awake article about like abortion at one point, and it got me thinking about like babies and kids, and I would have been no older than 11 or 12, but I asked my mom, I said, like, what is God gonna do with the babies and the kids? Like, they can't get baptized yet. They're too little. They can't get baptized. How, like, what's gonna happen? And my mom said and whether or not this is their belief or just her answer, but she said that it was dependent on how good their parents were as Jehovah Witnesses, on their faith. And I was like, what? Like that does like just that just instantly just made me feel like so scared for the kids, like and the babies, and um so it was more yeah, I think it was more just fear of seeing everybody, especially little kids and babies, be destroyed at Armageddon because their parents didn't know what they were doing. And I
well, she gave you the JW answer,
yeah, yeah,
basically, until you're of the age of accountability. You ride your parents' spiritual coattails, so to speak, and
exactly.
it's a lot of pressure on the parents as well,
Mhm.
and uh, that can be used to shame parents for their actions and such. Don't you care about your kids? Don't you want to save your kids? So on
Yeah.
and so forth. Uh, and their God killed all kinds of kids. I mean, the
Mhm.
flood of Noah's day, right? If you weren't in
Mhm.
that family, your kids or unborn children were all wiped off the earth.
Exactly.
David's kid with Bathsheba,
Yeah.
was greatly affected, right? By his, I mean, they really believe that, and they are okay with that. It's really tough. That's a
It
hard
is.
one to really think about. What loving father would just use children as fodder, like
Mhm.
for wars and such? That's sad.
It is sad. And these are the these are the things they tried to say that would affirm my faith, but really just made me question it more. And I think that there's a lot of people just finally accepting that answer and not listening to their gut as to why that answer doesn't feel right, probably because it isn't. And
Well, they don't
you
want to be
know,
killed, right?
exactly,
So
exactly.
they're trying to save their own
Yeah.
neck with their very punitive, murderous God,
Yeah.
Jehovah. He's gonna kill them if they don't do what he wants. So I mean, they're just trying to live. It's that
Yep,
human will to live.
exactly. They're just trying to survive.
Yeah, survive their own belief system.
Yep.
So so what was I want to touch on the family life at school, Kingdom Hall. Since we're on school, that topic a little bit. I know you were homeschooled. What was, but let's just look at that for a minute. What was life like at school for you? Obviously, once you got to that homeschool atmosphere, what was homeschooling like for you?
It was a very lonely and poor education. Um, they didn't, my parents didn't, they focused on it for a few years. Um, and then at a certain point, they just decided they wanted to save money and basically stopped buying me books for school and just bought books for my sister for school and said I could kind of catch up on hers. Um, and I'm thankful I had my sister there because besides her for a good chunk and some kids at the Kingdom Hall, we really didn't have much socialization. And looking back, my mom, when I look back now, I see really severe depression in her. But that's not what we said at the time. My mom and dad always just said, Mom's sick or she's not feeling well. And so, like, my mom really didn't get out of bed a lot. So, my sweet older sister, bless her heart, would get me up, make me breakfast, and help me with school. When Dad got home from work, he maybe teach us a little bit of the school books here and there. But really, it was pretty poor education, and I didn't graduate from high school. I got my GED once I left.
That's a very typical
Yeah.
end result of that. Um, and I think your story echoes many others. And I've got to say, very sadly, if I had a nickel for every time somebody had a mom in the organization who just stayed in bed and just didn't get up much. And there
Yep.
was I hear this so much in these stories, in my coaching practice. There's just so many people who had at least at least one parent, and it didn't always have to be mom. It could have been dad, but a lot of times it was mom. It sounds like that was just so deeply depressed, and then they have these kids who are at home and need to be taught because you've taken them out of school and nobody's teaching the kids. It's just, I mean, most kids aren't going to teach themselves. And it sounds like for you, books were hard to come by. What's the age difference between you two girls growing up?
About 21 months, just under 2 years.
Okay. So were you kind of expected then to, older sister, I guess, gets the books and then you get the hand-me-down books? And is that kind of how it
Yeah.
went?
Yeah. So
Okay.
I think that would have been in around grade 7. And then once grade 7 hit, I was doing, I didn't do grade 8. I went right into the grade 9 books with her,
Mm.
something like that.
And did you all
So
ever do any specific programs? Like, I know there's like various homeschooling programs that people will sometimes sign up for. Did you all do any of those?
we did a couple in the first few years, but it kind of ebbed and flowed. There I think honestly, I think a couple of them kept my parents a little too accountable, and my mom couldn't keep up with it mentally. So they slowly became more lax programs, and then just basically books and a little bit on the computer because the computer was kind of coming into school at that time. So we had some internet teachers at one point.
Mm. I'm sorry that I think education is a right, and that kids should have that. And unfortunately, there's a lot of folks that aren't teaching their kids for various reasons. That they may have good intentions and pulling them out of other environments that they think they do, but I mean, there's a reason teachers get paid, and
Oh,
there,
absolutely.
is education behind that even, and how to teach, right? Not
Exactly.
everyone is cut out to be a teacher, and
Ex-
that's okay.
100%. 100%. And I mean, it was something I didn't really realize was a right till honestly, even not even that long ago, 4 or 5 years ago. I knew it was a right, but I didn't really realize the effect it had on my sister and I, and how hard just not having access to that education really was for both of us. And really, I don't even know if she got her GED. I don't know
Oh yeah, many don't.
exactly. So it's and honestly, even studying for that was intimidating and hard because of what I didn't know. I had to go by my own books to study, and my husband had to, help me with certain things. So it's
No, I get that.
a
My
whole
wife
thing.
didn't graduate either
Yeah,
from homeschool, and
yeah.
I had gone to a very traditional and kind of honestly college prep
Mhm,
type of school, and I excelled in school. And then when she wasn't, so I had to help her with a lot of her GED materials
mhm.
and kind of help her get up to speed on some things, so that I wanted to make sure she at least had something, because
Exactly.
parents didn't make sure she had anything.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
No
It's
matter
sad
what.
how often it happens.
Yeah, it really is. And I was like, if something ever happens to me, I want you to at least be able to go get a job if you need one or something.
Yeah,
And you got to have something.
yeah,
Most jobs require at least a GED, so we need to go get
exactly.
something.
Yeah.
Um, it is sad. There's a lot of ways that Jehovah's Witness kids are left behind, and it's sad that happens. Um, so that was school. Let's talk about the home a little bit. You kind of touched on that too. So, what was life like growing up in your home as a JW?
Okay. I guess it depends on the stage of life.
Sure. Yeah, yeah, yeah. You
Might have
just
to break it up a little, if
right.
that's okay.
Oh,
Yeah?
absolutely. Yeah,
Okay.
we'll get to like your teenage years and things and specifics
Okay.
of how that went as well. But just
Okay.
kind of growing up as a kid. I mean, just speaking in generalities, was it a happy home? Was it a loving home? What was kind of the temperature, so to speak, of the room?
I think our home was a good mix of, like, happy and sad.
Mm,
Um, like, there were some great times, lots of fun, and my parents I think they I think they tried really hard to make up for, us not celebrating birthdays and stuff. Like, we had what we would call surprise day, and it was basically we just wake up one morning and it was basically Christmas, but without decorations, and we just have a big fun family day. And like they definitely there was definitely so much love and family, like that sense of family. But there was also this intense sadness in our house. And I do think that was a lot to do with whatever my mom was going through. Um, and it it affected my parents' relationship. Um, I don't remember them fighting all the time, but when they did fight, it was a big fight. No, I don't think like not anything physical, but lots of yelling and crying and screaming, and um a couple times where my mom like just left and didn't come back for hours, and just emotionally unstable, but still like I think I look back through rose colored glasses and I do see the good times. And excuse me, I see how hard they tried
mhm.
despite whatever they were going through. because there was
Sure.
clearly something, you know?
And the realities of all of these situations is that there was good and there was bad, and
Mhm.
um this is something that often happens among us as ex-JWs is we tend to sometimes we do look back through rose-colored glasses and build a caricature, kind of a romanticized version of what life was like, and because we all wanted to have good times, right? And so
Mhm.
sometimes we can build this version or vision of what our life was like, and take kind of picking and choosing the best moments,
Yeah.
it's just like when someone passes away, right? We
Mhm.
tend to pick the best moments and kind of build a version of them in our heads of who they were,
Mhm.
um and that can serve us at times, and especially in those situations. And at other times, it can keep us sometimes, unfortunately, chasing a version that just really isn't true, and can keep us stuck in some ways, mentally and emotionally. See that all the time. Uh, trying to, we were taught to chase love from emotionally unavailable people our whole life.
Mhm.
So, from an emotionally unavailable God, from emotionally unavailable people in the Kingdom Hall, and from our parents as well. Often people who were really struggling, and
Yeah, exactly.
and it sets up some tough dynamics. But that's why I always, I always do want the good and the bad, because
Mhm.
both are real when it
Mhm.
comes to growing up as one of Jehovah's Witnesses. There are good moments, and there are also sometimes homes that are really, really abusive, or whatever the case may be. I'm not saying that was yours, but sounds like, certainly it wasn't always the safest place in some ways, but it sounds like your parents also tried to do some things to make it fun, like surprise day. It's a good idea.
Exactly. I always thought it was a good idea too.
Was
But
surprise day on a literal surprise day, like you never knew it was when it's coming?
yeah, we never knew when it was
I
coming.
like that.
Yeah. It was just all it was always random. Or I think the one day they drove us to school, and instead of getting out, they just said, "Just kidding," and we went home, and it was surprise day. Like they put, just it was always something super random like that. So I do, and I think that's, I mean, probably part of how I was raised is to just look past what, like you're saying, like look past what's bad and just see the good. And through through all that good, like I said, was my little sister calling my grandparents to get her an alarm clock because she needed to be able to get me up for school, and because my mom couldn't, and just like other random stuff. And I I think a lot of it I normalized, and maybe even still sometimes do try to normalize it. But when you say something that's so normal to someone and they look at you like, that's not normal. And it's like those realizations still happen 17 years later, and you just don't really realize what's not normal till you're out of it. And it even sometimes takes someone saying to you that shouldn't have happened, or it shouldn't have been that way, or
But that was normal for you. It was
exactly.
your normal, and
It was
and
my normal. Yeah.
and it's normal to also
Excuse me, sorry.
downplay certain things that happen in our lives because we
Yeah.
don't want to feel bad or to look at the pain. It's a
Yeah.
podcast I used to love. I haven't listened in a long time, but it's called the Mental Illness Happy Hour. And on it, the host, a comedian, he would have different people on to talk about their mental disorders, their dysfunctional childhoods, their sometimes mental health professionals, and there were anonymous surveys that you could take. And I haven't talked about this for a long time, so I'm going to throw that in this episode. But um, one of the surveys there it was anonymous and you could take it on the website. And it always struck me when I would listen. I think I was even a witness back when I was listening. And one of the questions was basically, have you ever been a victim of sexual assault? And yes, no, or some stuff happened, but I'm not sure if it counts. And then there was a text block underneath that where people could go on and elaborate, right?
Mhm.
And it was amazing how many people would choose the last option. So stuff happened, but I'm not sure if it counts. And then go on to elaborate things that to an outsider are obvious assault
Yeah.
or abuse, right?
Yeah.
Uh and I think, it's just how we as humans deal with trauma. It's how we
Absolutely.
process things that are bigger than us and that are hurtful. And I think a lot of us grew up in environments that were neglectful, that were emotionally, if nothing else, neglectful, that sometimes were very mentally and emotionally unsafe at a minimum.
Yeah.
Um, and it's not about blame, it's just about saying, "This is what it was, and it therefore had an effect on me."
Mhm.
And that's hard to do. That's very hard to do. And then, again, I work with a lot of folks who, sometimes when we're talking, the first time that, something comes up, and we talk about it, and they never thought about that before. And
Yeah.
people have been through a lot.
Exactly. Yeah, totally. And it just sometimes it takes having that one conversation or just looking at it just a little bit differently. And I think with us as ex-Jehovah Witnesses, we're just trying to accept what it is for what it is and not ask questions, and that's just how it is. And you go through life that way, and that just becomes your default setting. And you get in therapy and you look back and you're like, holy, I don't know how I made it through that. But your brain is so cool, and it'll just put it in a box for you till you're ready. And um, as as you unpack it, you start realizing, like, holy, there's a lot more back there than I realized. And like, even just sitting here talking to you right now, like, these memories keep popping up, and I'm like, oh, that was weird. That happened. Like, should I say that? And it's
It was a
it's just
lot. It
it was
was
a
a
lot.
lot, and you've touched on it. We were all taught to live a life of denial,
Mhm,
self-denial, denial of our own feelings, our own
mhm.
thoughts, and when our thoughts and feelings popped up, we were usually gaslit in some way, so that
Yeah,
we would set ours aside and adopt theirs, whatever they may
exactly,
be, whatever served the
exactly,
narrative of the time. Uh,
exactly. And
If you're feeling stuck in your life after cult involvement and can't find the life you want, leaving a cult is a new beginning on a path to healing, not some magical end itself that is healing. Relief from the immediate pain feels good at first, but that's not necessarily true happiness. The feelings of social awkwardness and isolation, lack of self worth, perfectionism, patterns of being attracted to emotionally unavailable people, not even knowing who you are yourself. All of these things and more are lingering effects of that environment. Being in a cult isn't just following a doctrine, but it's following a culture, a way of life, a way of being that doesn't just go away because you stopped attending meetings. If you want to shortcut the path to healing instead of trying to figure it out on your own, maybe even work with me professionally in my cult recovery coaching practice, you can find opportunities to do that and also for other cool resources at my website, exjwhelp.com. That's exjwhelp.com.
I one memory that comes up, like, from being young and in the church, or I guess we didn't call the church, in the Kingdom
Yeah.
Hall. um I get used to calling it that now, so people know what I'm talking about. But there was just this control to just sit and just be, and I was just wired and wild as a kid, and just trying to sit there was this intense pressure. And I I remember acting up at one meeting, and my dad grabbed me by the arm and kind of dragged me out crying back to the bathroom, and just ooh, I don't know if I should even say it. I guess I'll just be vulnerable. And he took my pants off, my skirt off, everything, and just smacked me bare in front of probably four brothers in the bathroom. And I don't really know what happened with that, but my mom ended up finding out, and it became this whole thing. And so then there was this phase where my mom and I just didn't go to the meeting. She wouldn't let me go. Um, and I think that there's this like struggle that my mom had like with the power struggle, or the ego, the power trip that my dad got from becoming a Jehovah Witness man and working his way up through the congregation. I think he thought he had it all, and he had everybody under his thumb. And um, that was probably the moment I realized he didn't, and that was I was pretty young. I think that was probably the moment I realized he has no answers. And my mom, bless her heart, tried as hard as any Jehovah Witness woman could to get me out of that. And he never hit me again. Um, so there's like, that's one thing. Like, that took me years to realize that that was messed up on
Very
more than one level. Um, and but it also took me years to realize the strength it took for my mom to stand up to him in that moment. So as much as there was beauty and happiness in our house, there was sadness and anger, and it was just this um kaleidoscope of every emotion, and I didn't know how to navigate it. So I don't think any of us really do.
well. You're certainly emotions aren't really allowed in most Jehovah's Witness households.
Mhm.
Emotions are a problem to be dealt with.
Yeah.
At best, they're not to be respected,
Mhm.
and usually people aren't making safe places for them.
Yeah.
Glad to hear that your mom took some sort of a stand there. I mean, I don't know what she was going through, and uh, I don't, don't know what was going on behind closed doors,
No.
in their relationship. Uh,
No. Mhm.
but yeah, that's definitely not okay. What he did, and
Mhm.
um, there's just this forget, certainly uh, the last part of it or the part where he's pulling your pants down in front of brothers and spanking you. We all know not okay
Mhm.
in front of these other men, um, but also uh, just the nature of Jehovah's Witnesses and that thing they do where kids are expected to sit in adult boring meetings for hours and to never move, and when they do move or make a sound, they're told they're bad kids. No, the situation is bad, not the kid. And then the kid is drug out, and and everybody knows what's about to happen, and people laugh and giggle, and it's this weird sanctioned violence inside the Kingdom Hall.
Yeah, if it's in the Kingdom Hall, it's okay. Because,
Yeah.
yeah, I don't know. You're so right.
Yeah, it's really, really messed up, and
Mm.
it always bothered me, and I was never, man, I don't know if I ever got taken out. I don't know. I was just like, I'm not pushing these buttons. I don't know. I could
You saw it
sit, and I
happen too
did.
many
I
times.
mean, my mom had the pinch, and I got pinched. But as far as like taking you out, I don't think I ever experienced it. I just remember as a kid, even though watching other kids go back and watching everybody laugh, and
Mhm.
I think a part of my soul died when I would watch that. It was just
Yep. So embarrassing.
so just cringe. It was, I don't
Mhm.
know, it was just disgusting. It
Yep.
was, I don't know that there's a word for the way that I felt.
I don't think there is, but I totally know what you mean. Yeah, I totally get it. Because and then people are gonna talk about it after, and it's a whole thing. Yeah.
So yeah, talking about how kids were treated, and you mentioned that sometimes people were going to be talked about, or people were going to talk about it after the meeting. I don't know how prevalent this was, but I know in my Kingdom Hall growing up, there was a particular parent and a particular child, and everybody knew that it was going down when
Mhm.
they left, and it just became this almost like this congregational joke, and it was just really sad. I don't know if that's, people can put in the comments on YouTube, I guess. Was that something that was prevalent in your congregation, where, I mean, we all know kids got taken back, but I mean, was there that person, or that family that you just knew it was bad, and that you were seeing, maybe it was your friend who was getting drugged to the back. I just
Mhm.
think there's a weird relationship with Jehovah's Witnesses and violence,
For sure.
that is really not talked about a lot, but there's a lot of violence prevalence. I mean, from spousal abuse and such, that is condoned, to kids just being beat. But as long as it's for Jehovah and it's at the Kingdom Hall, that seems to be okay.
100%. I will say I was that kid, the kid in the hall.
Uh,
So I totally know what you mean. And um the I think the worst was when the rumor went around that I was possessed. They the it was probably a good year. Like, they wouldn't let me preach with them. I couldn't. They wouldn't let me in the car because they thought I was possessed. And I look back now and I'm like, absolutely bonkers that you're going to sit there and say this child is possessed because they're acting out because they have these big feelings and these emotions that they can't sort through. And like you're saying, they're told to just sit. A kid can't even sit at a restaurant for 2 minutes. Like, you think they're going to sit at church for 4 hours on the weekend? Like, come on.
I I think you're my first guest who was deemed to be possessed as a child. So, oh gosh, and just how pitiful all of this is. But uh, what were you? How were you acting out? That was so dastardly. That was so like demonic. I mean, were you just a squirmy kid? Were you? I mean, what was it that was to them worthy of possession?
The you know what, I really don't know exactly. I was a little bit hyper. I was a hyper kid. And I think probably maybe I had been a bit, not maybe physically aggressive, but like loud, like really loud. And as
Talk really loud?
um
Or just played loud?
I think played loud. I didn't talk loud. I played loud. And there was a particular group of girls who were who had a very, very good Jehovah Witness reputation. And they became very good friends with my older sister. And I always wanted to like join in because there were no kids my age. And I always looked older than I am. So when I was like 11, 12, people probably thought I was 15, 16. So the men in the congregation kind of sexualized me as a young child, and the women hated me. So it became this like vicious cycle of them trying to just bring me down, I think. And where I think the demon thing really started was this group of girls and my sister. We were out jumping on a trampoline, and I double bounced somebody and they fell off. Everyone was fine, that they just double bounced and it fell off. And they said I had so much power and strength. I know it's it's so stupid. And it was like a year of it. Of like I could like Alex, like she's looking older than she should be. She's stronger than she should be. She's rebellious. She asks the wrong questions. She's a harlot. She's a Jezebel. She's 12 years old. Can you not? So it was just this weird turn of events that happened, and that's really kind of how it started. Just don't double bounce people on the trampoline.
Oh, I'd have been out there double bouncing everybody at a point. Like, this is great.
I know. It should have been a
I
good
apparently
time.
have demon powers. I mean, no, but seriously, it's so stupid. These are grown adults, doing this to kids. I mean, first of all, I think there's a lot of kids. I'm not saying you, but there are a lot of kids, neurodivergent kids and kids with ADHD or on the spectrum or whatever, that they're not going to be, the Kingdom Hall is going to be a tough place for them.
Yeah.
They're going to have to mask a lot. It'll be really hard to sit still. People with ADHD often play very loud. You're not really supposed to attract attention to yourself. That's not a good thing in the unsafe Kingdom Hall, right?
Yeah.
Somebody's going to have a problem with you because you stand out. You got to be brought back down in line. And then if you are this kind of big for your age, 12-year-old, let's say. I mean, I've had many friends who have kids, who are 12 but look 16, right? And people expect things out of them. Like, they're still 12. They're still a 12-year-old boy or girl. Like, they're not adults.
No.
But Jehovah's Witnesses kind of expect all kids to be adults. They don't let kids be kids. They struggle with that you're supposed to, at 8 years old, be thinking about the end of the world, the destruction of all things. And it's way too much for kids at that age. And then you brought up, because of this, there's so many layers to this, because then you bring up this sexualization by the men in the congregation, and that is not going to go well for any female, young, old, wherever you are on the spectrum age wise. There's always a lot of jealousy, and I used to watch it even. My mom was married, and I watched other sisters who felt like jealous of her or things, and it was just the story she would tell me. I was like, who are these people? Why are they
Right?
all so insecure? And maybe it's because a lot of the men are these just gross guys. And I think there is a lot of that, unfortunately, in the Kingdom Hall. And it's really sad because
Mhm.
there's the repression and the misogyny and all the things. Um, so I can't imagine being 12 years old. I mean, where did you fit in? It seems like everybody's coming down on you. The men are looking at you for all the wrong reasons. The women hate you because the men are doing that. Uh, you're now possessed. Uh, so stupid. So I guess, are the kids staying away from you too? Like, did you have anybody? Were you very, very alone?
I was for a few years there. Yeah, I was very, very alone. The girls, the family with the girls who were like my main bulliers at that point, they also had older brothers.
Mm,
So and the older brothers were like doing a lot of the creepy things, right? And their mom was the worst. So I don't really have a better word for it. I have better words for it, but I probably just shouldn't say them.
I don't care what you say, but
So
I understand. Go for it.
I remember one time, um, there, you know how they used to have like visiting brothers come and give a talk for Sunday or whatever. So we had this visiting elder coming to do our Sunday talk, and he had a son who was my age that I kind of knew through friends, and I had a crush on him. So I was just learning to do my makeup, 12, 13. So I did my makeup and I put on what I thought was my nicest dress. I wanted to look my best for this guy. And um, we had, after the meeting, these girls' mom come up to me and she says, um, what was her wording? She says, "What are you doing with all that makeup?" And I said, "I just wanted to look really nice today." She said, "Well, you look like a whore, and if you were my daughter, I'd make you leave God's house and wash it off." Right to my face. And I just broke down and cried then and there in the middle of the hall. My mom, bless her heart, she came to my rescue and she ripped that lady a new asshole right there. And I I realized then how much even the adults there hated me. Like, I really didn't have I had my mom. I felt like I had my mom, but like no one else. Sorry.
No, I'm sorry that
Um,
that happened to you. That is very emotional. You're a kid.
but yeah, I felt like I didn't have anybody. So that's kind of when um I I decided I needed to get baptized.
Was that going to fix it?
And I thought so.
Yeah. If I get baptized, what do you think was going to happen? Respect?
Um, I think I thought they'd yeah, I think I thought then maybe I'd get respect, that then they'd realize that I did believe in the truth and that I did love God and that I wasn't as like God wouldn't let a demon get baptized, like he'd stop that. And like I thought that like it would just make them see me like they saw my sister. Um like my sister was the good one. So she when she kind of told me she was getting baptized, I started studying the knowledge book with my dad. I think 3 nights a week we studied it. And I focused for a good few months. Like I have to get them to not see me as evil. And it, I mean, long story short, that sure didn't work. They all just, I think they just, I mean, maybe they just saw it for what it was, is for me just trying to fit in, even though I didn't fit that mold of a Jehovah Witness. So they took my baptism as BS. But I was really trying to take it seriously and just show everybody that I'm not as bad as you think I am. Like, you know?
But they need somebody to kick so that they can feel better about
Yeah,
themselves. So
exactly. Yeah.
uh, it's not necessarily going to change it. How old were you? So you got baptized?
Yeah.
And how
13.
old were you?
13.
13. Okay. Um, yeah, that's brutal. I mean, all any kid wants is to be I mean, it's hard enough as a JW kid going to school, which I know you weren't in a traditional sense, but going to school and feeling ostracized or different from the kids around you.
Mhm.
Um, then to go to the Kingdom Hall and have a bunch of grown up, Jehovah's Witnesses talk about how they die for each other and all of this stuff. No, they wouldn't. No, not at all. I mean, they're picking on kids.
Mhm.
They're bullies. There's so much narcissism inside the organization. There's so many people that are just controlling and in an environment where everybody's supposed to be the same, and the human desire is to be an individual to some degree and to self-actuate. Uh, People do so by picking on whoever they feel that they can rally around and pick on, and it's just really
Exactly.
sad that
Yeah.
adults are picking on children here.
Right.
It's
It's
really
it's
pathetic.
absolutely heartbreaking.
It is.
Mhm.
It's devastating. And I'm so sorry that that happened to you and to so many other kids as
Mhm.
well. It's just a brutal environment. So you got baptized. Anything pre-baptism that we skipped over that you want to address before we talk about post-baptism?
I don't think so. That sums it up, I think, pretty good. Yeah.
So you get baptized at 13. You think that that's going to change maybe the way people see you inside the organization. Uh, did anybody? I don't know. I mean, did your parents see you different? Did they? I don't know how your parents saw you at that time, or your dad maybe. It sounds like your mom was maybe defending you, in at least in certain instances.
She definitely was. I think my dad was proud to see me get baptized at um, a fairly young age. And he was, at that point, he was really, I don't know if he was just an elder or just trying to become an elder. But regardless, he was just proud and so excited that he had this great spiritual family. Both his daughters are baptized at a young age, a faithful, good wife, and everything looked great on paper for a while there, but it really didn't change the no one really included me anymore or any like like, it didn't really change much of anything. I did kind of branch out and meet some kids from different congregations, like in neighboring towns, and just kind of decided to maybe not deal with the people in my hall and make friends with people in different halls. And that helped for a bit. And I guess I kind of met the bad kids from the other halls, and we all kind of made our own little group of misfits. And
Yeah, you're gonna get
for
in
a
where you
couple,
fit in.
exactly. So for a couple years, I did have um, some friends. They were mostly guy friends. I found a lot of girls were um, just not into the same stuff as I was. I really liked skateboarding, and I was the emo kid of all emo kids. So I found a place, but it for sure wasn't the place my parents or home congregation would have thought or wanted for me. Um, and probably within a year or 2 years of that, all those friends left the truth. So I couldn't associate with them anymore. I was not allowed to. So then the loneliness was kind of back. And I I got told I had to start paying rent at home
How
at
old were
about
you?
16. So I had to go get a job. So I went to get I had a job at Tim Hortons for about 2 days, and I hated that. And then I went and worked at a Chinese food restaurant for a couple years, um, till I was just about 18. And real like that's where I met people who made me feel included, and I started trying to fade away about that time.
So paying rent at 16. Was your family in some sort of dire financial straits or something? Like that's a pretty that's not that's atypical to say, hey, son or daughter at 16, go get a job, start paying rent.
Yeah. Um, yes, my family was in pretty bad financial situation. Um, there, I know my parents were bankrupt at least twice in before that. Um, my dad's identity got stolen. He got his wallet stolen at one point, and it just kind of messed things up for them financially. Um, so I don't really know why I had to pay rent, but I did. I think it was about 350, 400 a month. I had to pay
Oh,
rent.
oh, I thought that maybe it was like, hey, can you chip in 50 bucks, $100? No, that they were charging you kind of probably maybe, I mean, I don't know, back then, maybe market rate for a room or something.
Yeah. And I
In
was
your own
working.
home. Wow.
Yeah. And at the time that they had already told me to, like, they weren't paying for school anymore. So we were done doing school, and I had to start I had to get a job and start paying rent if I wanted to live there.
So what would they have done? Would they have kicked you out at 16 if you didn't pay rent?
I don't know. I mean, they didn't kick me out much later.
Okay.
So, yeah,
Ooh.
probably.
Did your sister have to pay rent too? She was like this kind of the expected thing?
By the time they asked me to start paying rent, she was married. So she got married at 18.
Had she been paying
So
rent at 16?
I feel like she was, honestly.
Wow.
I don't really know for sure, but I know a lot of the time because she was working at like a pizza place, and like she'd bring home dinner for us, and like she like yeah she probably was. I can't say for sure, but
Hmm.
she was buying food and going to work every night at the same age. Yeah.
Um, oh, I just, uh, I don't know. That's a shame. I obviously I don't want to. People are different, and everybody has their own ways of doing things. I guess. I think I would feel bad taking my kids' money at
Me
16
too.
years old. If I took it, it might be to teach them how to pay rent, and I might save that money in an interest-bearing account where I could give it all back to them when they moved out as like a deposit on an apartment or something. I don't want my kids' money. I don't have kids, and maybe that's easy for me to say. I just
Oh, I feel
that's
you.
just striking in a way. At 16, to be expected to pay, $400 a month rent or whatever it was.
Mhm.
That's it's a lot.
Yeah, it was hard, and to be honest, like after a few months of doing that, I was like, okay, well, I'll just start looking for my own place.
Yeah, I would.
I didn't find anything. I mean, other things happened. I didn't end up doing that, but like, yeah, I I did what they told me to,
Well, sure. Yeah, yeah.
and it's crazy to say, like, when I think back on it, it's like, yeah, I would never do that to my son. I couldn't fathom. He's not even 3 yet, and I couldn't imagine doing that to him. But it's
Well, you want your kids to get off on a good start, right? And
exactly.
help them to save money and teach them how to do things. I just can't imagine taking from my 16-year-old kid again. JW kids are just expected to grow up so fast.
Yeah,
Oftentimes, I'm not saying
yeah.
every time, but that's a lot.
Well, a lot of the time they are too, and that's kind of how I felt. Like you expect me to grow up, you expect me to be this woman, and then you shame me for being too grown up and being too much of a woman, and there's no place for me here. And I don't know what you want, and I don't know what I want because I've never been able to think for myself. And it was just this. It was just crazy.
Mm. Was your dad an elder by that point?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Um, so, how does your life proceed then? It sounds like wow, it just strikes me that there's really not like there's no. I've said this. I think there's another episode titled "No Safe Place." Like, where's your safety in anything here? Where do you get to relax or feel safe? Now you're a 16-year-old who's got to earn her keep. Even home, I guess you could be evicted.
Well,
I don't know, but
I probably could have. Honestly, my as goofy as it might sound, like my safe place became the restaurant I worked at.
mm,
Um,
no, I can see that.
I we had a I grew up on Vancouver Island, like on the basically the full other side of the country, and there was a so there on Vancouver Island. There's an island in between it, and I grew up on that. It's called Quadra Island, and what I would do is I would take the ferry over to my work, and I'd basically miss the last boat on purpose, and I wouldn't come home. And I would just stay where I could stay because I didn't want to go home. I wasn't safe there. It wasn't fun there. I was hated there. And at least with my friends, my new friends at work, I could be myself. I could have fun. I could laugh. We could do whatever. And it was a pretty safe excuse to miss the boat, but because then I knew they couldn't come get me. But it ended up basically being days and days and days of me doing that to them, and I wouldn't come home, and I wouldn't come home, and I wouldn't come home. They wouldn't know where I was or what I was doing. And don't get me wrong, it got me into a lot of trouble, for sure, the other, like, real trouble, but it was better than being there. And basically got to a point where I had such a bad reputation as a Jehovah Witness, and I was now associating with people who are worldly and becoming such good friends with these people that are worldly that it started getting my dad in trouble as an elder. And the boys in the young men, whatever, in the congregations around me, they started like noticing that reputation. And a couple months there, it got really bad. There was an elder son who reached out to me, and he said, I just want to hang out. Like, we used to be really good friends growing up. Our dads are friends. Like, I know you're going through a lot right now. I'd really like to just like be there for you. And I was like, okay, well, maybe they're not all that bad. And I kind of like gave this guy a chance, and we went and hung out a couple times. And then a couple other guys like in the same group were like, no, we got you. Like, don't worry. And they bought me a couple of them bought me flowers or took me out on dates. And Jehovah Witness dates, meaning walking on the beach and like really not doing anything, but just cheesy, whatever. Mm-hmm. And then I got a call amongst all that from one of their friends, and he said, Alex, like, I know you've been hanging out with so and so and so and so and so and so. Like I know you think they're trying to be nice, but they're just seeing who can get in your pants first. And they know they won't get in trouble because no one wants to talk to you anyway. So they think you're safe. And I was like, okay, so done with this. And it was around that time my dad got asked to step down as an elder because he couldn't keep track of me. So they didn't think he could keep track of the congregation. And my dad, he got really, like, that's kind of when I saw him getting depressed, and he wouldn't really, like, he wasn't himself at all. And I said, like, Dad, like, what do you want me to do? And he basically said he just wants me to be okay. Like, he wants everything to be okay. And if not being an elder is going to be what makes his daughter okay, then that's what he'll do. And so I said, no, Dad, like, I'll move. You be an elder, I'll go. And so I packed up my stuff and moved to the next province within 3 weeks. And I would have been almost 18, 17 and a half when I moved out.
When he said, so at first blush, it sounds nice. Like, I just want you to be okay. You know, I would certainly sacrifice this for you if that's what it took. But what's okay mean? Okay means back at the Kingdom Hall, being an active Jehovah's Witness, and so on and so forth, right? Being okay doesn't mean living the life you want to live.
Exactly. And I knew that. Right. And I couldn't let him.
Why you moved.
Exactly. Said, Dad, I'm not changing. It's not going to get better for you unless I'm gone. And so I got to go. So luckily my sister had gotten married at 18 and moved to Alberta. And she she's pretty chill for the most part, and she was like, no, just come here and stay in my basement for a few months, and that worked till that didn't work. But that was where I went for the first few months. And yeah, my dad was an elder again not long after I moved out. So
Isn't it gross how they use this in the congregation to this like making kids feel responsible? I mean, it's so manipulative and it's so obvious the way they do this. You're
mhm,
not presiding over your household in a fine manner because you can't control your, growing kids.
yeah.
Frankly, you were a tenant. You weren't even
Really?
you were a renter in the house. I don't know why they cared. But suddenly they care, right? Suddenly they have feelings about you. Suddenly they want to act, and it's just to force the dissolution of the family. It's just a break. I mean, that Jehovah's Witnesses break up families left and right.
Oh,
Um,
everything. Yeah.
and I don't know who your dad, my dad would have sacrificed his kids for his eldership in a heartbeat.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure that's why my brother got this fellowships. Well, I
Mhm.
mean, I know it was my dad who was behind it.
Yeah.
Uh, and yeah, that was priority number one, not his
Mhm.
kids.
And that always is. And it's funny you say that. I remember like one time my sister and we did the stupidest thing. We had a sleepover with one of our friends, and we decided to like tape record it. Like when you and we tape recorded our entire conversation from the sleepover, which was wholly inappropriate, filled with swears, just everything that we shouldn't have been doing. And our parents found it, listened to the whole thing, and we were all in like major trouble. And my dad sat my sister and I down, and he said, I'm talking to you guys as an elder, not as your father. And that was that's a critical core memory for me. That was like I was like, okay, so you just really don't care about being a parent like at all. Like I know what you care about. You care about your reputation in the congregation. You care about power and control and feeling like you're some type of big man and can talk down to your kids that way. Like no. And it'll forever stick with me when he said that, because that was, I mean, he'd said other things before, like in his relationships, like it was always God, mom, us. We were always third. We always knew we were third. God, mom, us, no matter what. And so, I mean, I always knew I was like lowest of the low to him, but it's shocking once you're a parent or once you're out and you realize like this is all that matters to them. They'll sacrifice they'll sacrifice anything to have that title in the congregation. It's crazy.
Becomes their identity, and they
Yeah.
don't they won't give up anything for that.
No.
I also want to touch on and just say I'm so sorry, but that thing that those young men were doing,
Mhm.
it's I think there's a lot of that that occurs in the congregation. It's just hard for me not to see Jehovah's Witnesses in pretty much every way as predatory. They are predators. They are spiritual predators trying to get you in their cult. But there's also just, they prey on vulnerable people. Oh,
Mhm.
hey, Alex, I know that you're hurting and you're not doing well. Let me be your friend, right?
Yep.
And I have to say sometimes, and I don't want to, I don't. I'm a watcher and I kind of have a photographic memory, and I watch people at times, even in ex-JW groups, and I observe things. It's just how my brain works. And I see people at times, and anytime here's hurting woman, who's really, really vulnerable. It's just like you
Oh yeah.
see certain ex-JW guys jump in and they're like, "Oh hey, DM me,"
Yep.
and
Oh
it's
yeah.
like, don't DM that dude. You don't know him. You
Mhm.
brought this publicly to a group to talk about it, to be vulnerable, and I hope you find support. But don't trust ex-JWs just because they went through the same trauma you did, just like you wouldn't just trust anybody in the Kingdom Hall. Just
Exactly.
because we all went through the same thing doesn't mean that you can go on these groups, spill your guts, and then
Mhm.
expect, like, don't just go stay with random dudes, or don't just, because you don't know these
Exactly.
guys.
You don't. No, it's so true.
I watch it a lot and it gives me anxiety because
Mhm.
I'm like, ooh, that guy I would not trust because I've just seen he does this all the time and he's always talking about certain things. And if there's a girl who's hurting, he's like, hey, or looking for money, hey, why don't you do OnlyFans? Right. And it's like,
Yep, exactly.
bro, like this seems very predatory.
Yep.
And I know from the work I do, from all these interviews, from things I talk to people about off the interviews, like Jehovah's Witnesses do all the things that anybody else would do, just under the veil of secrecy
Yep.
and more secrecy, perhaps. And
Mhm.
I know brothers will reach out to sisters who get disfellowshipped and be like, "Hey, sis, like basically, let's hook up now because you're out." And like,
Yep.
nobody's gonna believe you, right?
Yep.
You're a non-entity, a non-human now.
Yep.
So we can hook up and I don't have to worry about it.
Mhm.
It is
Absolutely.
there is this world out there of Jehovah's Witness couples trying to hook up with people. There is like all the things that you can
Crazy.
imagine,
It's crazy.
and people don't realize that.
They don't. And but you're so right. Like it's like that exact same thing happened to me so many times. Like when I left, it was bad. Like the older brother of those two girls I mentioned before that kept bullying me, he texted me and he's like, Alex, just reaching out. I know you've had a hard time. Um, and just hanging out at the park with my son. And I said, oh, that's nice. Well, I don't know. And he's like, can I send you a picture? Sure. Thinking it's going to be his kid at the park. It was not his kid at the park. You can, and it's just like, and then I called my mom thinking she might care. And she's just like, you know what? You've put yourself in this position now, Alex. No one's going to believe you now
Well,
that you're,
now she's not coming to
yeah.
your
And
rescue.
now she's changed her tune. Like as I got older and, and it's, so, and that's why I thought she would believe me. Like she'd always been my safe place. And at that point, it was like now that I'd left, like she was not my safe place anymore. And you're right, all these guys just come being predatory, thinking they can get away with whatever they want because I'm bad association, disfellowship, like they take advantage of it. And I was actually talking to a friend of mine the other day, and he used to be a Jehovah Witness, and he was basically saying like we kind of got on this topic because he was friends with this group of guys, and he was like, it's just crazy because he said it like we were all so pent up. It's like we were taught to like repress it to the point that we didn't know what to do with our feelings either, and we see these men around us treating other women this way, so like they just mirror this bad behavior. And as these adolescent boys and kids with hormones that they don't know what to do with and they're not taught what to do with them, ends
Well,
up
still
not
not an excuse for the creepy
it's
behavior,
not an excuse. It's by no means an excuse. I
but
completely agree, but it's
it
just like
does, yeah, it
it's
does
like
shine a
it's
light
not
on
me
why.
exactly. It's not making a bad problem any better. Like it's
Mm.
just making it worse. And it's just this cycle of this bad behavior. And honestly, I in my life I didn't know like Jehovah Witness guys my age that weren't like that.
Well,
I don't know too many.
sexual repression causes
Mhm.
oftentimes, not always, one of two outcomes. It either does create people who are shut down sexually, or it creates people for whom they become very pent up. There's a lot of shame around it. Shame becomes addiction fuel, and they become hypersexual. And I think that there's a lot of that
Yeah.
um, in the community and outside of the community as well after people leave.
Mhm.
Because I mean, they impact humans on every level.
Exactly.
I think that one in
And you're taught
particular showing how far they reach.
exactly. And it's like you find shame in everything about it.
Oh yeah,
And there's no healthy way to do anything as like so it's it it's just awful, especially when I look back, I was literally a kid, and these are lots of the time grown men, ministerial servants, or elders' sons, or these people that are supposed to have the highest of morals, and they generally don't even know what morals are, you know,
sure. Um, they
a lot
yeah.
of the time.
Yeah. There's I thought about at some point. it- So what I don't want to do is shame Jehovah's Witnesses for things that are natural, but at the same time, they portray themselves a certain way. Uh, well, some of it's very unhealthy and unnatural, but they portray themselves a certain way. And I just think you could have a whole series of like JWs gone wild. I mean, Jehovah's Witnesses, they do all the things that humans do, right? They're human beings, but sometimes they go even harder because of the repression, the
Yeah.
shame, the secrecy, all
Mhm.
those things.
Yep.
People, I think, would be shocked sometimes if they knew what really goes on. I mean, there's key parties and there's people
Mhm.
hooking up after Jehovah's Witness conventions and hotels, and there's like
Yep.
all the things that are going down. There's people having birthday parties, there's people doing things, and everybody thinks they're so like pure. And again, not that those things are necessarily by nature impure, but the way they go about it all certainly does not
Exactly.
align with who they claim to be. It's all
Exactly. And I
fake
think,
juice. It's
yeah,
fake.
exactly. And I think that was what was really hard for me. And I said to my parents, like, I promise you, I was wild. I was in bars when I shouldn't have been. I was too young. I was not I like you said, I grew up way too fast.
Mhm.
And there was a point where I was just doing these crazy things just to do them. And it like you just kind of taking them on overdrive because I felt so alone and closed off and in this little box for so long that when I got out of it even a little bit, I went buck wild. It was like game over. I'm doing this. And so I totally get it. And I look back and I think, no, there's probably some truth to the reason why I had this bad reputation. But really, was it that bad, or was I just a normal teenager?
Yeah, you're probably a
You know?
normal
Like,
teenager to
you
a
know?
degree.
It's like a perspective of this, am I bad, or was the expectation just so high that it's so unattainable because
Yeah.
no one can live that way? And when I said to my mom at one point, like, you know, God considers lying bad. He considers everything else I'm doing bad. I'm gonna pick the bad that's most fun. And I went down that path. I'm not like it's not fun to lie about who I am and still be deemed a bad Jehovah Witness when I could just go be who I want to be and then not lie about it. Just, you know?
Right, but even at that, like who you want to be, that's being influenced too by
Yep.
where you grew up in, right? A lot of ex-JWs jump out and go far harder than other people because they feel all the images, all the stories they've ever been told is that everyone outside's going buck wild. So they leave Jehovah's Witnesses and think, well, I have to go buck wild to be accepted, right?
Yeah.
So I've got to go harder than everybody. Or you see a lot of people, again, nothing against tattoos. I love tattoos, for people who want them. Um, but if you leave Jehovah's Witnesses and you want to get a tattoo because you want to, not just because they said you couldn't,
Yeah, exactly.
right? Because,
Yeah.
and and not to throw shade even at someone who did that, because we're still acting out of that hurt and out of that past life. But when you can get the tattoos because you just like a tattoo and want it,
Yeah.
awesome. Now you're doing it for yourself, and they're not still having an impact on that particular decision. And maybe your tattoo even reflects the past. That's fine. That can be a way of processing, but don't do it just because they said you couldn't. Don't go to college just because they said you couldn't and get massively in student debt chasing something you don't even know what, because you have no plan. It takes time to get to these things after leaving, because there we are like that spring that they compressed, right? And they used to give the illustration, and then you let it go and then it bounces all over, because there's all this pent up energy and we don't know what to do with it.
Exactly. I was very guilty of that. I totally get what you're saying.
Yeah, and it's normal. That's a normal reaction to an abnormal situation.
I think so too.
Just being human, put in the wrong
Yeah,
situation.
exactly. Yeah, for sure.
So what was your path out? Because you said, so your dad, his eldership was at stake, and you were like, yeah, I know I'm not gonna be who you want me to be, so I'm gonna go ahead and bounce and go find my own way. So you moved out.
Mhm.
Um, just go move out and live life. Did you do something to? Did you get closure of some sort on your JW life? What did you do?
So I just moved. I tried to do the fade away and forget about me kind of thing. Um, but my sister and her husband were still active. They are and were then still active Jehovah Witnesses, and um, I would call them like they weren't the most like they weren't uptight Jehovah Witnesses in any way. So they didn't care if I went and drank or had friends that were Jehovah Witnesses as much. But they still wanted me to pretend. So I did a little bit, and I went to they thought maybe this new congregation might be a bit better. So I went to a few meetings with them there. But I was just like, no, I really just don't like this. I'm not gonna go, and um tried to fade away from that congregation as well. Um I kept getting lots of phone calls from the elders. I wouldn't return them. They were trying to set up a meeting and talk to me. And um, they came to my work a few times, trying to talk to me at work, trying to get me to come back to work or to
No
them.
boundaries.
Yeah, no boundaries at all. Um, so I was I was talking to my mom on the phone, and she just said, she's like, I think you just go sit and talk with them, just go meet with them. And so I was like, okay, like, I guess so. So I went, and by myself, I went and talked to the three elders. There's three of them, of course. And I just straight up says, like, I don't have any intention on being a Jehovah Witness. I don't have any intention of showing up to your meetings ever again. Like, you don't need to follow me around. Like, just let me be. And they said, okay, well, if that's the case, then you need to come back tomorrow and bring us a letter to state that, and bring us your no blood card. So I did. I I think it was the next day or the day after, I wrote up this letter stating such and went back to the three of them, gave them the letter, and they wanted the blood card back, so I gave them that. And I said, okay, well, you're out. See you later. And I called my mom and said, "Is like, okay, well, I met with them a couple times. I gave them the letter and the no blood card back." And my mom was like, "What?" I said, "Well, what?" And she's like, "You disassociated yourself." She's like, "No, we're not talking to you anymore." And I was like, "What do you mean? Like, I thought like it wouldn't matter. Like, you knew I wasn't going to be a Jehovah Witness anyway. Like, what's excuse me, what difference does this letter make?" She said, "That letter makes all the difference." And she put my dad on the phone, and he said, "Okay, well, this is it. This is the last time we're talking. We're done unless you come back." And that's it. I should also mention, by this point, my sister had also kicked her out of her house. So I was living with my now ex-boyfriend's family, just staying in their spare room because I had nowhere else to go. And I hung up the phone that night, and I was like, "Holy fuck! Like, I clearly, like, I made a mistake, and I shouldn't have wrote that letter." And it was like the it was probably like the darkest, most lonely I'd ever felt. Like, I knew, like, I couldn't go back to my sister. I'd only been dating this guy for a couple months, so I felt like I was in a stranger's house. And I was like, well, I guess I can still believe in God. And I decided I was just going to pray. And I prayed to God, if he was there, if he was real, to, like, just let me know I made the right choice. And as you know, like, we always believed that if you want to hear from God, you read the Bible. The woman, my ex-boyfriend's mom, had given me, out of rebellion, a King James version of the Bible because I had never read one before. And she had it on the nightstand. And I turned the light on, I opened it up, and I looked down and I read, I don't remember what the exact verse is, like numbers, but it was in Psalms, and it said, like, "Hide not thy face far from me, put not thy servant away in anger. Thou hast been my help. Leave me not when my father and mother forsake me. The Lord will take me up." And I was like, okay, I'm doing this. And that was really the start of me not being a Jehovah Witness anymore. And I knew that even if I was as alone as I could feel at that moment, I really wasn't as alone as I thought. And I could do it if I had to. And I did.
It's to any Jehovah's Witness out there, it's like, tell me you don't live in a man-made corporate organization when the elders pushed you for basically your badge to the building back, your identity card. I can't believe that they wanted your blood card back. That's so stupid. So give us the blood card and then a letter of resignation. And then for your parents to be like, well, that letter means everything. What do you mean? You knew what Alex was doing. You knew the life Alex was living and wanted to live. So you thought you could fool Jehovah, right? Your God. He would, because he sees this, whether or not there's a letter of resignation or not, right?
Yeah.
So you think that he cares that much about the letter that he would have been okay with you all having association anyway. It's like
Exactly.
I've worked with so many people in my coaching practice who, they're wanting to disassociate, and there's some family who's begging them not to. And it's like, but
Mhm.
they don't believe, they're apostates, but
Yeah,
you're willing to have a relationship with them as long as they don't turn in the letter.
exactly.
And
And
I'm
that's what I
sorry,
think.
but
Yeah,
if our relationship hangs on a letter, then I'm probably just going to turn it in and let the chips fall where they may, because it wasn't that much of a relationship anyway.
and that's so true. I've never thought about it like that, because you're right. Like, if if you being parents to me meant, like, it was hung on the balance of a letter, like, what was that to you? And I mean, I
That's
don't know. I can't know things from their perspective fully, but there's not a there's not a thing in the world that would make me turn my back on my son, let alone a belief system. Like,
no, and that's why, although I know it's hard for a lot of people to hear, I think that it's hard to ever say that our parents truly loved us. They loved parts of us. They cared about us, but I don't think they know what real love is.
I don't
Their
think,
love is completely, it's really just control,
mm,
and it's care and control.
yeah,
But they can't, if you can't love me for who I am, and you can only love me if I'm just like you, well, you just love yourself.
yeah, exactly,
You're a
exactly.
narcissist. You don't love me.
Yeah,
You just love yourself. And if I can't reflect back to you who you are, then you don't care about me anymore and don't want anything to do with me.
yeah,
Well, enjoy your relationship with self. I'm gonna go.
yeah, exactly.
I
Go
hope you're
enjoy it. And
happy.
yeah, and it it's just crazy that they have that much control of people's brains and emotions and stuff. Like, yeah, it's just crazy to me.
Well, and they do, but you said something earlier, and I think that it's an important point to make, because people often, I run into a lot of people and they're like, well, it's just the cult, right? Jehovah's Witnesses just have control of them. They're just complete victims who have no autonomy and no responsibility in this. Eh, at the end of the day, your dad was attracted to it because there were certain parts of who he is that made him attracted to it.
Yeah.
And you can see in the way some Jehovah's Witness parents have never really shunned their kids, that shows part of their personality. Whereas my Jehovah's Witness parents were like, let's shun him as quick as we can,
Yeah.
far before he ever leaves this thing, at least a year before. Let's let him go. Because that's who my parents were.
Mhm.
I knew it would be that way because that's who they are. They're authoritarian, they're crime and punishment. There's no
Yeah.
real attachment there. And we focus on the detachment at the end, but we forget to realize that there was never any real healthy attachment to begin with. You can't have healthy attachment as Jehovah's Witnesses. Every relationship is a perceived threat and must be
Mhm.
kept at some distance. So there's
Yeah.
never secure attachment for any of us.
That's so
Um,
true. Yeah.
Never. And that's why it's so easy for them to detach at the end, because they don't know how to attach and they don't know how to love. And there's a part of them that's being exhibited through their Jehovah's Witnessdom, their
Mhm.
experience, right? That, so it's the cult and the cult narrative and the cult control and coercion.
Mhm.
And it's also kind of the person to some degree too.
No, and that's very true, right? Because, like, when like my as I had mentioned earlier, my mom was in bed a lot when we were kids, right? And then there was this phase of life where she was, like, almost more her normal self, and then I didn't see it physically because I had been shunned at that point. But after, I guess, after it was announced at the Kingdom Halls what that I was disassociated, she went into, like, I guess she went back to bed. She didn't get out of bed for months. Then there's my dad calling my grandma, the one family member who would talk to me, and saying, "Don't even mention her name. She's dead to me." So it's like two sides of the coin there, right? Like a
Your
mom
dad
who,
showed who he
yes,
was, and your mom showed who she was.
exactly. And you're right. Like it's my dad. We can see what my dad really cared about. And my mom, being a good Jehovah Witness woman, she just broke down mentally and depressed because her kid's gone, and the man who controls her life and hasn't let her work in 25 years, 35 years, has her in this snow globe stuck because this is her life now. There's nothing outside of it.
So she's in the
And
cult of Jehovah's Witnesses and the cult of him.
yep, exactly. Exactly. And so it's so true. Like it's part the people and part how those people let the religion use them almost, or use their brains almost.
Yeah, healthy people aren't getting sucked into that thing.
No, exactly. And it's true because I've got like my mom's best friend, she's got two daughters who are around our age. We live two different provinces apart, but her two daughters left Jehovah Witness. She still talks to both of them. She still has a relationship with both of them. Whereas then there's my mom who will like literally block me if I send her an Instagram message. You know, I'm lucky if I'm able to send her an Instagram message if I'm not blocked. So it's like two sides of the coin, probably very similar situations, but
Yeah.
you
And a
know,
lot of the healing, I think a big part of healing comes when you realize that when the narrative becomes not they're disappointed in me, but I'm disappointed in them. And
mhm,
I don't want or need anything from them
mhm.
because they're not healthy.
No,
They're not okay.
no,
And
exactly.
I've outgrown them, and perhaps someday they'll catch up. But until then, they're on their own path. That's the one they've chosen, and
Yeah,
um, it is what it is. But I mean, what are we going to get healthy from them? What have we? A lot of us are still chasing healthy things we wish we would have gotten as kids, and there's just nothing there.
exactly. Oh, totally. Like you don't realize what you missed out on as a kid, or why you feel the things you feel or don't feel what you should feel. And it all stems back to that kind of, you know?
It's wild that your mom sent you to the elders. They're the ones who pushed the disassociation. You were just following what they told you to do.
Exactly.
And then then she's upset. Well, yeah, I did what you told me to do, mom. Like you told me
Exactly.
to go there and that they were going to be a help for this situation. Then here you go. So I mean, that's
Right?
kind of
That's
on
that
you.
exactly. That's why I felt so blindsided. I'm like, what? This like it makes no sense.
Yeah. So you're disassociated, you prayed about it and read some scripture and such. So you decide that you're going to take on this new life on the outside.
Mhm.
How old were you when you were disassociated?
That I would have been 18. So,
Wow.
so yeah, yeah.
Okay. So D8 at 18. And so you're talking to me now, I believe you said in your 30s. So what happened in the interim?
Oh gosh,
Or just how's life been?
life life was pretty hard for the first bit. I won't deny that.
Of course it will be.
Um,
It's gonna be because you
but
weren't taught anything and you're
yeah,
thrown to the wolves, so to speak.
luckily I knew how to pay rent. Just kidding. I'm just kidding. No,
Yeah,
it
we got a
was
life skill there. Work and pay rent.
um, you know what? It was the first few months were weird. Um, as I had said, I was living with my ex-boyfriend at the time. I had nowhere really to go. And then he broke up with me, and I was stuck there still, and it was just crazy. I ended up moving out on my own with roommates for a few months, making friends. And what I really like in my early 20s, around 19, 20, I realized like I can have a career now. I just realized that. Like, okay, so um I really focused on that. Getting my GED, focusing on my career. Um and I really put a lot of I put a lot of my passion and energy into that because I didn't think I'd have that opportunity before. I always pictured myself as a housewife. Not that that's a bad thing, but I knew I could at least do both. And I really wanted to be a doctor. I didn't get there, but I was able to get to a really good place in my career, and I partied. I had lots of fun. I met lots of great people. Fell in love with my husband. Had my son. I've moved across country, and as I'd sacrifice it all 10 times over to have what I have now, a million times over. I'm very blessed and grateful, and um, yeah, I don't know. I don't know what else to say.
So can I ask, you didn't become a doctor, but so what kind of career do you have?
I work in administration, and so right now I'm an executive assistant to the chief and council of a First Nation, and so I work kind of in First Nation governance and politics, and I'm hoping to branch into doing Indigenous human resources as well.
Wow, that's very
Mhm.
interesting. Very specific. Was there a did you know someone, or are you indigenous, or I don't know, how did you get to that place? But like
Um,
that's very specific. So how did you
Kind of
through
through the
someone new?
people I met.
Okay, so people you
I'm not indigenous. My husband's family is,
okay.
and sorry,
Oh, you're fine.
and I my very best friend is First Nation,
Mm,
and when after I had my son, um, after mat leave, I kind of found myself looking for something different because before that I had worked in a hospital, is in human resources, um, and I didn't want to stay there anymore, and I just kind of started talking to my friend, and she said, "Well, I think you'd be great at this," and we kind of just talked, and I applied, and I I just it was just one of those things that happened naturally, and it just kind of right timing, and yeah, so
and so you're kind of involved, ex-JW, a little bit involved in politics, huh?
yeah, I know it's crazy.
Making an actual, or at least try. I know that the it's a big system with a lot of power behind it, but at least trying to make a difference, right? That's
Absolutely.
rather than going out placing magazines or something that really don't help anyone in any material way in their life. Typically, you could actually do something that impacts somebody's life in a positive way.
Exactly, and that's and it's funny because I think for a while after being a Jehovah Witness, like being an ex-Jehovah Witness was like my identity for a while. Like
Oh,
that's
sure.
all. Do you know what I mean by that? Like it just
Oh,
kind of
completely.
became
I think the goal is to become an ex-JW.
yeah, Yeah, exactly. And like, excuse me. So when I kind of got out of that, like I call it my black time. Like I was really depressed. Like it was so heavy. It was everything. And you really do. You have to dig yourself out of the hole, and you have to do the work. And
Mhm.
by the time I came here and um was able to like just reframe my brain for not I'm not I don't need to be labeled anything about that at all. I just need to be who I am now, do what I'm passionate about, and love my family. And that's like live in the moment. I don't have to live in fear for Armageddon or be scared of what I did in the past and be getting in trouble for it. It's just now, it's just here. And to be in a position where I can help people who are struggling, or um, it's it feels like doing the actual thing that I was pretending to do as a Jehovah's Witness. I thought I was helping people, going and preaching. I thought I was doing the right thing. I was really just doing what I was told, and there was no right, or there was no real reason to it other than to gain a check on my publisher card at the end of the month. This having a career that I'm passionate about, where I can actually help people and meet and talk to the coolest people ever, is like, it's such a gift that like 10-year-old me would never have thought possible. And I'm very, very happy to say I actually made that one work.
Well, I think I guess what I notice now is it sounds like your life is full of people. You're not on the outside anymore. You're not you're not the people in your life who are supposed to love you are not hating on you. You are not being labeled as possessed or whatever, right? You are living in the real world, and it sounds like you've got some people around you who genuinely love you today. And in a lot of different ways, and that's what everybody deserves a chance at.
And you know what? It's true, because when the people who are supposed to love you more than anything in the world and protect you more than anything in the world, and they turn their back on you and say you're dead to them, you don't think that a unconditional love is really possible. You don't think that exists. And when you find out that it does, even if you have to search 15 years to find it, it's worth it. Even if, you know what I mean? Like it's the conditions that my parents put on me, they don't mean anything anymore. They don't mean what they used to. And like freeing myself from those chains, you have room in your life to actually embrace that love, and not, you know, it kind of seems like you found it too. Like, you know, you find your passion, you find your community, you
Oh
find
yeah.
your people, and your place to fit in, and everybody has one. It's just trial and error till you find the right one, and not judging along the way, and just doing what makes you happy.
Yeah, absolutely. Finding the people in your life. I mean, it's hard to let love in when you're continually chasing it from emotionally unavailable people.
Yeah.
Your energy is being expended and wasted instead of going out. I mean, it's so just so sad. So many ex-JWs are stuck chasing family members and such who don't and can't love them because they don't have or know what love is. Instead of going out and finding there are good people out here who can love you and who want people to love in their own lives too. We're all just human beings, and everybody wants the same thing at the end of the day. People have some dysfunctional ways of going about it at times, but they want the same things. We all just want to we're all on a rock hurtling through time and space, and we're all very out of control in a lot of ways, really, when you think about life. And we're just trying to find good things day to day. And we're all humans.
Sure.
We all hurt the same. We all love the same. Whatever, that's what we all want anyway. Is there anything that you would say to those that shun you today if you had a chance?
You know, I think I would just tell them that I love them and that I'm happier now.
Good. And if they love you, then they would be happy that you're happy,
Yeah,
right?
I think
That's
so. And
that's
I think one thing I've realized too is I I think they do love me.
best they can.
Yeah, in the way they know how. In the jaded, messed up, weird way Jehovah Witnesses love. They love me. And I I love them in my weird, messed up, jaded way that I can love them too. And
Sure.
I'm fine if it's at a distance. And yeah, I just hope they're happy. And I truly do. I hope they're happy. And my heart and door is guarded but open, you know?
As it should be.
I I think um yeah,
Yeah.
as I thought I'd have a bajillion things to say to them, but I don't think there's much to say after what they've put everybody through. All the ex-Jehovah Witnesses have gone through so much, and I don't know how many more families have to be broken for it, but at least we can find comfort in knowing we're not alone, and I'm glad that we have these platforms available, for people when you are in that dark, black, really alone feeling place, because 'cause you're not and you never are as alone as you feel. And, like, all the people I think one thing someone said to me when I was in my darkest places, "Don't close the door because you haven't opened it to all the people who are gonna love you yet. You haven't met everybody who's gonna love you yet. So you
Yep.
just gotta keep going and know that there's always a better day ahead."
Love that mentality. It's hard to see sometimes when you're in a place
Yeah.
that dark, for sure.
Oh, yeah. Mhm. And
Sounds
sometimes it's
trite.
annoying. Yeah, I was gonna say
Yeah. Oh,
sometimes it's
yeah.
annoying that
Annoying
your winds
even.
are that
Yeah.
bad. Oh, yeah, for sure.
But it is true, and
Mhm,
Jehovah's Witnesses want us to be shut off from everything on the outside so that we
mhm,
can't be happy, right? I mean, it's much the same in a domestic violence situation as a husband who's violent towards his
mhm,
wife, saying, if you leave me, no one will ever love you like
mhm,
I do. You need me. You're nothing without me.
mhm,
And if that person takes that on, internalizes it, and believes it, which probably already has, and is why they're in that situation to begin with. Probably didn't start with that relationship either. Then yeah, you're gonna stay stuck. But if that person can get out and believe that they are lovable, that they do have good things, because that's what we were all kept from, was self-love.
mhm,
We were just good for nothing slaves of Jehovah, here to disown ourselves. You know,
mhm.
if you can actually learn to love yourself, then yeah, there's good things out there, and you can go get them.
Absolutely. And it's so true though, like, you're right, and you're taught to just be a slave to something else, and when you get out of that, you have this it's very overwhelming. It's a
Hmm.
deeply overwhelming feeling of sensory overload, mental overload, sadness overload, anger overload. And then if you're like me, you'll like actually go on Google and find out every single lie they ever told you. And you're like, oh my God. And then there's that overload. And I mean, it's something we'll always have to unbox. I think it's always going to be something that we carry, but over time, I wouldn't say time heals all wounds. I really wouldn't, but
No, time and work
it
heals.
exactly. There's a combination is putting in the effort that you know you deserve, and it's hard to be it's hard to be the one who has to give yourself everything. It's hard to be your mom, it's hard to be your dad, it's hard to be your sister, your brother, your aunt, your uncle, but those are the most badass people that can do that.
Yep. And when you can give yourself those things, it's really hard to have it taken away from you
Exactly.
ever again.
Exactly.
So, what do you like about your life today? What's good in Alex's world? I know that from the little interview we did for the Patreon subscribers, Christmas is good. You like Christmas,
I do like
and there's
Christmas.
some other things we talked about as well. But so, what's good in your life today? What do you enjoy about Alex's life after Jehovah's Witnesses?
Oh, I think there's so much to enjoy about it. I fell in love. I met my husband. Had my son. I've met so many amazing people. Traveled, partied, explored, smoked, drank, everything. Well, not everything, but just all sorts of fun to experience. And um, I think really that like the best part about it for me has been creating the life I want and creating a family and yeah, I just there music. I love listening to music as well.
Singing the
Watching.
melodies, right?
Oh yeah, it's the worst. They do get stuck in my head still
Oh, they
sometimes.
do get stuck in your head. Oh
You're just
yeah.
like, what the heck was I dreaming about? Like, oh, get out of there.
Jenny and I will tease each other about them sometimes.
Yeah,
Yes.
or even dreaming about it. I've had this dream where I'm trying to get away from the Kingdom Hall, but I'm walking against the wind and can't get anywhere. Just just like just crazy stuff. But I don't know. There's
If you'd like some extra content and you'd like to learn more about our guests today, maybe even have an opportunity to connect further with them, you can do so by joining the back room tier at patreon.com/shunned.
there are countless things I appreciate about living the life I do now, and I think it's really relearning that sense of family because I truly hated that word for so long. Um, but I mean, even my dog and my cat, they're part of my family now, and like we've created this little life here together, my husband, son, and I, and it's um, it's just peaceful, and
Yeah, it sounds
I've
like it's
never
taking back what it's redefining and taking back what family means, and
exactly, yeah, exactly,
yeah, reclaiming that.
because it was such a nasty word to me for so long, and I I like that you said it that way. It's reclaiming it, redoing it for what it means for me and my husband and son, and that's the main thing. And honestly, it's just great to be wild and free and do whatever you want, whenever you want, however you want, and it really not matter.
Yeah, that's a beautiful thing. Well, I'm glad that you are free today, and I appreciate you coming and sharing the story of how you achieved that freedom. I'm sorry that you went through. I guess freedom is never free, right? It always comes at a
Mhm.
price, and I'm sorry that you went through so many things in your journey too. But I'm happy that it sounds like you landed in a good spot and got a lot of love around you today.
Thank you so much. And you too, thank you for sharing all these stories and having this platform for all those who are unfortunately in the situation of being shunned. But hopefully we can find some common ground and help each other heal through talking and just letting it all out.
Absolutely. If you want to tell your story on the podcast, buy merch, or get more information, go to shunnedpodcast.com.